Welcome to a new episode of the Sports Mecca podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Abramo. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Sam Hengeli. Today, we are joined by Houston Christian University Associate Head Coach, Evan Lavery. Evan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast this evening.
I appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, absolutely. To start this episode, and both Sam and I have several questions that we'll be asking you, but the first one will be, how would you assess your first season, the 2024-25 season, as part of the Houston Christians coaching staff?
It was a real positive year, no secret. Simple Google search can kind of see where the program was at in prior years, and so we understood the assignment going into it that obviously there's going to have to be a complete overhaul of everything from expectations to talent in the program to how we're going to go about things offensively and defensively. Like they're just you know I've worked for Coach Doty now for 10 years, and really the program needed his spin on things, so we were fortunate to for him to get hired, and then naturally when your head coach gets hired someplace, and we had the success that we did in Emporia State, it allots for opportunities for guys that have been on his staff. So I had a handful of guys that was able to come with us to Houston Christian, so there was some good continuity in that regard. But again, I think the first year though, outside of us doubling the win total and moving up, nearly 100 spots in the net ranking and of the Division One level and things like super positive. But we learned a lot. You know what I mean? I think the first time going through a league, you don't know what you don't know. You're looking at different teams and just kind of their style of play, and you see what it looks like on film, and it's a whole different beast, obviously, than when you're playing against it live. So I think we got a good feel for the staffs and things. Obviously, a lot of really good staffs in the Southland. A lot of really good players in the Southland. It's a league where people kind of come and go quickly. A lot of guys with the transport and everything like that. The programs that have had a lot of success, and with the players that have had a lot of success, they obviously get a chance to level up. And there's just a lot of turnover within rosters and things, but we feel like we have a decent feel for things moving forward, at least to give us some direction on what we need to do from a recruitment standpoint, from a developmental standpoint, from a resources standpoint. Getting a chance to see everything firsthand. We're in the thick of our second recruiting cycle right now, which has been really, really good for us. Um, Obviously our first time around, we retained two scholarship athletes, retained two walk-on athletes, and then we had to recruit another 11 scholarship athletes. This year, we were able to keep five of our own, which is great. We signed a junior college transfer in the early session, or the early signing period, excuse me, and then we've signed three thus far. So we still need four more. Every time we get somebody, we're thrilled with that. We love growing our family and everything like that. But the first year has been really good. The first year has been really good, and with us seeing what we need moving forward, we have expectations to make it better moving into our next season and beyond. And no one holds us more accountable than our head coach, and nobody expects more than our head coach. So again, we're going to we're going to follow his lead with everything that we do, and we're going to try and make this thing level up once again in the 25-26 season.
Yeah. So you've worked with Coach Craig Doty for 10 years. Uh, Most recently, 6 years, you guys were together at Emporia State. Talk to us about your personal and coaching relationships that you guys have established now for over a decade.
Yeah, for sure. It started when I was still playing in college, and that was like many moons ago. It was the summer of 2011. Started working for his camp organization, Midwest Elite Basketball. Started doing that. The next year, I had then graduated from Central Methodist University and NAI School in Fayette, Missouri. Did that. Worked another summer for Coach Doty within Midwest Elite Basketball. Fast forward to that next year, the 12-13 season. I had my first collegiate coaching job. I was a graduate assistant at Rockford College, which is now Rockford University. Shout out to Ryan Rebsum for hiring me there, and giving someone fresh out of college a chance to be on his staff. About a month and a half or so into it, the head junior college job, Rock Valley College. Great place, great people, great facilities. It's just a top tier place. Their head coaching position had opened. Coach Doty had applied. Long story short, he got it. He lived on the couch in my dorm suite for about 6 to 8 weeks. Didn't really count, didn't really keep track how many days exactly that it was. Definitely wasn't charging him rent or anything like that. But he had then got a house, and then I was able to move in with him. Just to get out of McPhail Gardens, the beautiful on campus suite that I had that I shared with the soccer assistant at the time. So no, it was really good times in Rockford, especially to start off my coaching career. I think everybody in coaching has different stories like that where they get started with and things that make their journey unique. But then, yeah, after that year was done, Coach Doty kind of needed somebody that was um, available and willing to put the time and effort into to what the junior college level requires, especially a lot of junior college staffs are, one, two, maybe three people. Some of the better funded ones, the elite funded ones might have more. But again, was able to join his staff for the 13-14 season. Was his assistant for 3 years there. Won 94 games and a couple national championships in the process. Really, really good times. He had then moved over to Graceland University, and I got the chance to stay and run the program at Rock Valley for 2 years. And when he had won another national championship, this time at the NAI level, he got the opportunity to get hired by Kent Weiser, great man who was the AD at Emporia State at the time. And he had hired Coach. Coach had reached out to me, and then yeah, we did 6 years in Emporia, Kansas. We're fortunate enough to make an NCAA tournament. And build a program that was in a tough spot when we got there as well, and to a team that had won, 62 games over its last 3 years. So, which is no small feat. Obviously, with you guys being Kansas City guys, man, knowing how good the MIAA is, and the likes of the Northwest Missouri States and the Washburns, and really everybody in the league. Two most recently the teams that have had a ton of success and stuff like that, and anybody that is inclined to listen from those leagues. Shout out to everybody in the MIAA. Great league, great coaches, great players, great facilities, great administrators, and just ton of respect for the league and a ton of respect for the people that compete in it every single day because it's really good basketball, that's for sure. So once we wrapped up our 6 years, then we relocated to Houston. It's already been 13 months, and yeah, we're in the thick of it, preparing for our second season. So now, coach did a lot for me. He's allotted a lot of opportunity for me. To move up professionally in these ranks and stuff. And if it wasn't a good situation and I didn't enjoy the person I was working for each day, that I'd go find something else to do. So it's a testament to kind of how he handles business and manages his staff and everything like that. So really lucky that our paths had crossed. It's it ultimately led me a bunch of different places. One of those places to being Emporia, met my fiance in Emporia, we're getting married here in July in Kansas City. So, really, really excited about that. Grateful for that. So, it's been a lot of things that have happened over the course of these years since I met Coach Doty for the first time. So, just definitely grateful and appreciative of everything that's happened thus far.
Yeah, what have been the biggest lifestyle changes or anything that you've noticed differently from Emporia, Kansas to Houston, Texas?
Well, I'll tell you what, I sit in a lot more traffic, that's for sure. I can walk to the office faster in Emporia than most days I can drive to the office here in Houston. The places are so different, but they're both awesome in their own regard. Emporia is just it's a college town. It's incredible. Our guys had great experiences there. The people of the community were incredible. I mean, from coming to our games at White Auditorium to hosting random staff members such as myself for Easter. You know what I mean? Like there's just so many great people in Emporia, Kansas, and I as much as I enjoy everything that Houston and Houston Christian has to offer. My time in Emporia, Kansas, and lifestyle there was outstanding. Things are a little bit more expensive in the city. Obviously in Emporia, not quite as much. So it was, I not to say I wasn't appreciative or ungrateful then, but I'm definitely looking back on it like, man, like it's a lot different to, go out to dinner and enjoy yourself on a Friday night out here as opposed to to back in Emporium. But no, it's two completely different places with different opportunities, but both are great places, one to live, and to, to be a college basketball coach. So no, it's been a lot. It was a lot of fun there. I look back anytime I talk to somebody from my time in Emporia, or whether it be former players, former staff, friends that I met along the way, in Emporia, it does nothing but put a smile on my face. It was just an awesome time in my life. And as I've transitioned to Houston, love the warm weather. I definitely, born and raised in Northwest Indiana and spent time in Missouri and Illinois and Kansas. Now here, it's there's about 8 to 9 months a year where you can comfortably sit outside and have a meal, at a restaurant, things like that, which is just incredible. The other, 3 to 4 months, you don't want to be outside simply because it's just ridiculously hot and humid. But like anything, you take the good with the not quite as good and enjoyable. And it's been great, honestly. I've really enjoyed the change of pace and everything like that. Live in a suburban area out here in Houston, which isn't too terribly different from where I grew up in Northwest Indiana. It's just a stone's throw from Chicagoland. So no, it's great. The diversity out here is great. The people out here are great as well. It still has the same Midwest values. There's just millions of more people sharing those Midwest values as opposed to in Emporia. Obviously, a smaller community and things like that. But now I try and take pride in being able to blend in wherever I'm at. It doesn't really matter what the scene is. But no, just been fortunate for both communities. Got no complaints whatsoever. If I did, I wouldn't share them on this podcast. But at the same time, I got nothing but positive things to say about both my personal experiences from being in both locations. Been very lucky, that's for sure.
Now, comparing from what you've seen at Emporia State at the Division II level to what you saw in your first year at the D1 level at Houston Christian, what's your takeaways from just the individual talent that you've seen from your own players and then the opposition?
For sure. We were very fortunate to have a lot of really good players coming through our time in Emporia State. 17 different players that signed pro contracts from our time in Emporia State, and that speaks to the recruitment efforts of our staff, or it speaks to the development efforts of our staff. It speaks to the buy-in of our guys and them just wanting to work and do things the right way. So but no, I'll say if there's anything that's really different in terms of the basketball side of things, I think everybody's just an inch or two bigger. I think the bigs are a lot bigger at the Division I level as opposed to the D2 level. I think that's like one of like the biggest differences is your centers are just bigger. I think that's one thing. I think guys are a little bit more explosive at this level, a little more wiggle to their game and things. But honestly, like top tier Division II, and this is no knock to the Southland or any low major basketball. Like I'm somebody who's been Division III, Division III JUCO, Division II, now low major Division I, and have been fortunate to be at a lot of different stops along the way at a lot of different levels. But no, there's the D2 level. I mean, we got two D2 transfers that we had signed in this year's recruiting class coming up, and we can't be more excited about them. Like we think that they're going to fit in really well to this league, and we have high expectations for them. So I mean, as much as I would say, between some of the explosion and the body size and things like that, like basketball's still basketball. There's good players at a multitude of different levels for a variety of different reasons. So I think when I look at different things, it's some size and some athleticism stuff. And there's no doubt, at our level and things, especially with NIL and how things have transitioned the game, especially the Division I level. There's some guys on certain rosters within our league that have no business, playing. They let me word this correctly. They have every business playing at either a mid or a high major program. And with the NIL stuff, especially with the Pavia ruling and guys getting a fifth year, if they had played at a junior college along the way or an NAI along the way, guys are getting that opportunity to leave from the Southland and then go play at the mid or high major level. So, it's there's good basketball everywhere, and you got to definitely keep your head down, keep working and doing the things that you need to do on the daily as a staff, as a player. because it's a highly competitive arena. You know, everybody's trying to get better. Everybody's trying to get to that next level. Everybody's trying to have something a little bit more than what they had in the past. So, you know, there's no doubt, you know, that as we go into next year, the Southland is just going to keep on continuing to get more and more competitive, and the same thing is going to happen in the MIAA. You know what I mean? There's no question about it. So, good players across the board, for sure, and just just as we look at it and we go through it, you know, we just need to make sure that we're trying to make our players the best as we can, so we can put our best foot forward come game day.
Yeah, what makes you stand out specifically as an assistant coach at the D1 level?
I'm a normal guy. There's I don't know if there's anything that really makes me stand out more so than anybody else. I just try and show up every single day and serve our guys and try and help our staff. You know, is the position I'm in. I feel like it's you kind of got to be a glue guy. You know, you got to connect the players to the head coach. You know, the assistant coaches to the head coach. The program to compliance. You know, wherever it might be. You know, so I think. I try and be a jack of all trades of things, you know, whether it be, you know, trying to recruit players or develop players or game plan. Been fortunate enough to be around the game in a lot of different places in a lot of different capacities and things. And, you know, working for coach, there's probably not a duty that I haven't assumed at some point along my journey, you know. So I mean, there's times where, you know, coach, he's got 4 kids, the fifth on the way, where, you know, he might have to be at a family thing, you know, maybe one of his kids, you know, has a school pageant, or his son has a football game or something like that, and I got to run practice because he needs to go be a dad. You know what I mean? Like there's really not many stones that I haven't been able to not turn over during the course of my time being a college basketball coach. So, you know, I've been fortunate to be in spots to serve, and as far as me standing out, I mean, I try and show up every single day. That's it. You know, there's really nothing. There's no secret sauce to it. Try and just do the best you can with where you're at, knowing the situation at hand and what needs to be done, and just try and get after it on the daily. You know, if we can stack enough days, and as cliche as it sounds, you know, if we can stack enough days and do the things that we need to do, you know, we're going to put ourselves in a situation to, you know, have a better year two than we did year one, and hopefully a better year three than year two, and so on and so forth down the line. So, you know, if we can keep showing up and doing things that we need to do, you know, it's not as much as about me. You know, it's about every single person in our program trying to move in the same direction, from our head coach to assistants to student managers to players to support staff. Like there's just so many things that go into it that I could be gone tomorrow. You know what I mean? And somebody else can take my role and assume the position as associate head coach. And like that's all well and good, you know what I mean? And the program will continue to keep moving in an onward and upward direction, because it's not one person. It truly is the sum of its parts, and that's something that we definitely believe in.
So, Coach, so you came into Emporia State. The fun fact is, my first year as a student at Emporia State was when you and Coach Doty took over the program, which you took over a 9-19 program that was on the bottom of the MIAA, and then and then a few years later you took them to the tournament.
Mhm.
When you take over a program that's down like that, what are some keys that help turn a program around?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with injecting it with energy. You know what I mean? Like you got to come in and you just got to ruffle some feathers and change things up. I mean, I think, you know, something that coach has done a good job of everywhere he's been is try to maximize the guys that have been in the program prior. You know, obviously with the transfer portal and things like that, you know, it makes it a little bit tough to do those types of things. I think back to our time in Emporia State, you know, just sticking with that, you know, there was, you know, guys like Malik Haluchaweki and Hassan Thomas that played really big roles for us, and they were carryovers from the previous staff that had a year left until they had earned their degrees and everything, and you know they had up to that point they had in their 3 years of college basketball they had 3 different head coaches. You know, Malik coming from Bowling Green, having 2 different coaches in his 2 years there, and Hassan Thomas coming from UIC and having 2 different coaches in his 2 years there. Fast forward to Emporia State, 2 coaches in 2 years. I mean, there's just a lot of information, a lot of people doing a lot of different things. But I think some of it, you know, our junior college background helps. You know, I think there's no question about that. Where, you know, right now, like you get 3 to 4 months to be able to take as many guys as you can, whether it be guys that you retain or guys that you recruit, and you bring it all together. And then you got 9 months to really put it together and try and be at your best come late in the season. So, I mean, I think first off, you got to inject it with energy. You got to get guys that's going to buy into the vision. then you just got there's just a lot of little things that you got to do, whether it be, stuff in the community. Obviously, Emporia was great. I thought we did some stuff from a community service standpoint that was incredible, but I mean, we were outdone by the community there. I mean, they served us in a type of way, whether it's fans at games or bringing us in for meals and things like that over winter break and stuff. We can't. I mean that can't be appreciated enough just for the people that we had on the daily, and I think anybody that's kind of really engulfed themselves in the community of Emporia during their college years, or someone that's worked there, I think they would sing a similar tune to that. But and then obviously, as you get on the floor, just different expectations and things, and really sticking to your guns, and just not being to be afraid to ruffle some feathers and things like that on the floor, and things to demand excellence out your guys. And it's a very, people say college athletics right now is transactional. Well, early on with things, and even as you try and establish and then maintain, college basketball's got to be confrontational. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't be afraid to, especially with so many guys and coming and going. Like, microwave leadership ain't gonna do it. So again, there's got to be a lot of ways, for a staff that is there for the long haul, until either A, they get an opportunity to get a new job because they did so good, or B, they did such a poor job that unfortunately they got to pack their bags and move elsewhere. But like, you can't be afraid to hold you guys accountable. Can't be afraid to be tough on them and things this day and age, because that stuff doesn't go out of style. Like, there's got to be certain expectations if you want to get a program to where it needs to be, and then gradually, fortunately for us, the last few years, I wouldn't say we had a hands-off approach, but we had guys that have been in the program for multiple years where a lot of fires got put out by them before things got started. You know what I mean? Just simply because we had guys that have been in the program for multiple years, understood coach, understood our expectations and things like that, and knew what it meant to be part of Emporia State basketball. We're in the process of that at Houston Christian, where guys will understand here. Obviously guys that are returning, and the guys that we're bringing in. What does it mean? What are the expectations? And it's just a every day. I know it's not. I said it in the last answer, last question. Say it again. You got to show up every day. You got to be ready to go. Got to be ready to work. Can't really have bad days with things. You could have not as good days or challenging days, but you can't really linger on that, because it's really easy, to for programs to go on losing streaks and things like that. So it's just as easy to go on losing streaks of practices where you don't show up and you just kind of like, man, we haven't had a good practice in 3 or 4 days. It's like, well, that's going to carry over later in the season. Like, and that's, trying to get guys ranging from 19 to, 23, 24 years old to understand that, the sooner that they can understand that, the better off, and the quicker and the more expedited the development process can be, just because that's, you got to win them on game days, but, you can absolutely lose a lot of games on game day before the ball's even tipped, and just with how you want to prepare and how you want to go through prep work, and the pace in which that you work at, so again, it's just there's such a process that goes into it that I think you just can't skip any steps within that process. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I love about you and Coach Doty is how you sell your program, whether it was at Emporia State or at Houston Christian. Talk about how do you sell recruits on why they should come play at Houston Christian University.
Sure. Well, on the social media side, Coach Doty is an elite marketer of our programs. Man, he knows what to say, how to say it, who his audience is, and now there's no secret on that. You look at his Twitter following, obviously it speaks for itself. But he always is sharing content and things that people really that like to engage with and believe in. But as far as selling Houston Christian and things, like, you get a great city, you get to be part of a great city and a great climate. Obviously that can't be the end all be all, but you get to come to a place that has a faith-based background, you know what I mean, and you can be as involved with that if you're very much a practicing Christian. You want to do those things every single day. You can do that as much as you want to. For those who might be in a different stage in their walk of faith, like, you're not getting the message and the word and everything thrown in your face every single day. I mean, it's one of those things where you can be as involved as you want to be. So I think that's definitely something that's good about, what our campus lifestyle and everything has to offer. You get to play Division I basketball, you get to play in a very, very loud facility, and you get to play for coaches that care. You know what I mean? And with us not working with the collective right now, obviously there's different things that we got to sell. We got to sell the ability in which how we develop our players and move them on. maybe if you're a guy that that comes in, has multiple years of eligibility left, and you're a dude here in the Southland, like you can level up and move on to some different opportunities. We had two guys this past year, Bryson Dawkins and Julian Mackey, were both in the top five in scoring. Bryson Dawkins leading the conference in scoring, being a first team all Southland performer the second time in their NCAA Division I history here at Houston Christian. Both those guys are leveling up, and they're going to be paid really really well as far as the NIL world is concerned. So I mean, again, there's just opportunities to get better, to level up. There's obviously opportunities to get better and go pro. It wouldn't be our first time that we've had guys that have played at the professional level, and you get to play for a young coaching staff that isn't far removed from different things that guys that are in the college of age, that are going through. You know what I mean? So it's they get to play for people that are going to challenge them. They're going to get to play for people that care about them, people that are going to hold them accountable and everything like that. So now Houston Christian's great. We have great administration. We have people with vision to make the place better than what it currently is. They want to get better. They want us to continue to get better, and it's not just us; it's every athletic program. So when you have that different type of that forward leadership mindset, with everything that our admin has, we definitely are very fortunate to be here and represent Houston Christian in the men's basketball program.
That makes me want to go play basketball at Houston Christian.
Hey,
now.
let's go, man. I got four scholarships as of today here. So we can talk about that later when we're not recording.
Uh, so playing high school basketball, from my experience, the shell drill was a daily drill that we would run during the summer and in season to understand help side defense and guarding off the ball from the half court. But you taking it to another level by doing full court shell drill. What are some of the benefits of doing the shell drill from the full length of the court?
Yeah, for sure. I think it just further heightens where people need to be, in positioning wise on the floor. We do shell drill every which way, 1-on-0, one on coach, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on, like we do it every which way just to try and, put our guys' bodies through those type of repetitions and things that they need to go through on the daily. It's obviously early season stuff. We do a little bit more in the full court where, again, we extend it. Guys get up, guard the basketball and things, and just, it serves as a conditioner. We believe in that. Then obviously, then we condense it to the half court. As we get further into the season, practices get a little bit shorter, so we have to scale back off that just a little bit, so we have as fresh of legs as we possibly have to go compete in Southland play, which is it's rigorous, it's brutal, it's physical, and our guys got to be as prepped and fresh and ready to go as they possibly can. But no, we have some component of shell defense every single day. Style it varies, but it's something that we definitely believe in, to get our guys where they need to be. I don't think we guarded as needed as we would like to this past year. It's something that I take personally. It's something that I get to have my hands on at a very high level within Coach Doty's programs ever since I've been working for him. So we gotta tweak and adjust and do some different things this upcoming year so we can get our field goal and effective field goal defense down and hopefully put us in a position to win some more games here this next year. But no, full court, four court shell is definitely something that we've enjoyed in the past and something that our guys will see plenty of here in the summertime.
Absolutely. Most college teams on their offense, they try to get to the third and fourth side of the floor to get to their strength spots. In your offense, you try to get to your strength spot on the first or second side. What are some of the systematic ways in your guys' offense to get the shot you want on the first and second side rather than trying to get on the third and fourth side?
For sure. Coach Doty's now, and then the offensive side, not to say that I can't give opinions or feedback on that, but the offensive side that's Coach Doty's space. Like that. He loves running the offense, is something that he takes a ton of pride in. He absolutely cares about the defense and absolutely cares about special teams and all that stuff too. But offensively, he's always been an NBA style quick hitter guy, even dating back to his time as a head coach at Rock Valley. A lot of sets, and back in junior college, a lot of times sets would lead directly into baskets. At the NAI level, it still happened a bunch, not quite as much as junior college level. At the D2 level, and now Division I level, one thing that it does, it creates an attack point, and even at that, like there's a lot of good coaches out there, and there's a lot of good game planners, there's a lot of good scouters and things. So I mean, as we're running stuff, there's especially second time through in conference play, there's no secret to what certain sets we run and what action is going to happen. But again, coach wants, for it to be fast paced. He wants guys to be put in strength positions, first, second side of the floor. If we feel like we have the right guy taking the right shot, 20 seconds on the shot clock, it's better than us running the third, the fourth side and having the wrong guy taking the wrong shot under 5 on the shot clock. Obviously, pace varies. Style of play varies on a game-to-game basis, kind of depending on who we play, their style of play. So, and again, just their talent level and things like that. But, we try and be very intentional with how we go about our offensive game plan. And we go through and just really just try and put our guys in strength spots, create an advantage. And then from there, it comes back to, the player development component. It comes back to the breakdown drills and practice and things like that. Guys being comfortable making those plays because their body's been through it so many different times. So no, it's coach run efficient offenses. He's had a lot of guys that have been able to score a lot of points, a lot of great individual efforts, a lot of guys that can space it or score from dunker position, things like that. So it's worked every step along the way. I definitely see us doing more of that moving forward. I think that there's still a few things that he runs, back from our time at Rock Valley, and there's some times that we're running stuff on a year by year basis that might work for some groups that don't run that we don't run as much or don't work as well for others. So again, he stays dynamic with that and just really tries to find the best ways to best suit that particular group of guys that he's working with. So it's been something that he's had success with. He rolls with it, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But we definitely there are some modifications and adjustments as he sees fit along the way. So.
I want to get your opinion on this. So the state of Kansas finally put a shot clock in the high school game. What do you think of that? And then how much do you think the player development at the high school level with the shot clock do you think there's going to be some improvement of like a quality of play or skill and development with the shot clock for high school?
Yeah, well, first off, I think it's great that there is a shot clock going in. I mean, there's been plenty of times I've been involved recruiting a particular student athlete at the high school level, and everything is just it's not as conducive for how things will be once that particular said player transitions to the college level. Not every high school player wants to play in college. Not every high school player gets the opportunity to play in college. That's perfectly fine. I think as far as for the viewing of the game and stuff, it will speed up pace of play naturally. And I think too, like in the state of Kansas, there's some really, really good high school programs. There's some really, really good high school coaches, and they'll have to adjust some different things with how they do stuff systematically. Where you mentioned getting the ball 3-4 sides of the floor. It's gonna be tough. It's going to be tough to do that, and obviously, it'll pose its challenges as early on and things like that. But no, I definitely think that it'll be good for for the fans in the state of Kansas. They'll get a chance to see a little bit more up and down basketball. I think at times though it'll pose its challenges and things like that. Obviously, at the high school level and maybe some smaller communities where there isn't the enrollment that some schools that maybe in the Wichita area or in the Topeka area or in the Kansas City side or the Kansas side of Kansas City, part of the state and everything like that. But no, I'm excited for not only Kansas but any school or any state that decides that they're going to implement the shot clock. And like anything, with change there'll be a little bit of resistance and things. I'm sure there'll be some people that won't be thrilled about it, but that's okay. The game of basketball is ever evolving, and you just need to continue to adapt with what's going on and trust that it's all being done with at the Keisha level or any other governing bodies at the high school level. It's done obviously to best, suit the student athlete experience and the opportunities that they have to be basketball players, within their respective programs.
I want to talk about your season in the Southland Conference. McNeese State was the winner of your conference with Will Wade, who is going to be the next head coach at North Carolina State next season. What was it like going up against him? And also, did you have any interactions with Coach Wade on and off the floor?
No interactions, which isn't uncommon, especially from assistants to head coaches and things like that. He came down, shook our hand before the game, introduced himself, and again, I know Coach Doty and him have developed a bit of a relationship, obviously from a head coach to head coach level within the Southland and things like that. And from all indications of Will Wade, you know what I mean. There's things that people hear, from his time at LSU and stuff like that. And then there's what I got to see for the 40 minutes, that we got to play, and obviously, throughout the course of them playing the Southland tournament and throughout the South. Like there's somebody that genuinely cares about his guys, somebody that coaches his guys hard, somebody that coaches and preaches accountability. You know what I mean? Like his staff was well prepared. They knew what was going on. So, you look at somebody that, oh, he's in his second year at McNeese, and obviously it ain't his first time. It wasn't his first rodeo, with getting through and leading a team to playing high level basketball. That's for sure. But no, tons of respect for what they were able to do. They had some really, really good players that were able to do some really, really good things. I definitely will not miss him being in the Southland, and preparing for those teams. And I feel like there'll be other coaches in the Southland that may feel the same way with that. Wish them all the best in North Carolina State. There's no question about that. But no, but they're also in a situation where their administration's done some really good things with their collective and how they are going about being able to recruit and attract some very, very high level talent. So with Coach Armstrong and his staff there now, they're going to be ready to pick up right where Coach Wade left off. And it's McNeese is going to keep rolling. You know what I mean? And it's going to be on us and every other team in the Southland to continue to keep trying to get better and do the things that they need to, because they've raised the bar. There's been a lot of things that they've been able to do to increase not only the viewership in the Southland, but I mean, again, the Southland was like the 27th rated league in the 23-24 season, and it got as high as 19 this year, so I think that has a lot to do with McNeese and their season. Obviously, I had Stephen F. Austin and UTRGV, and there's a lot of teams, within the non-conference slate being able to win games and really up the juice and perception of Southland Conference basketball. So no, it was definitely a great learning experience being able to see how they do things and how everybody in the Southland does things. You can never be too proud to learn or be too proud to adjust to how other teams do stuff. So no, it was it was an awesome experience being able to compete against those guys and everybody in the Southland on a nightly basis.
I want to go back a little back to your time at Emporia State. One of the things you got to do is you got to play at Allen Fieldhouse, Bramlage Coliseum, and then the Charles Koch Arena at Wichita. But I want to talk about your trips to Allen Fieldhouse, and Steve and I are both Kansas fans. You got to play there a couple of times. I actually went to your last game there in 2021. It was the year that the Jayhawks won the national championship. What was it like being able to play a game inside Allen Fieldhouse?
Yeah, the coolest thing about Allen Fieldhouse is when you get there and you're able to take the floor, obviously like 90 minutes prior and everything like that. There's just this big field house, and it doesn't really feel quite the magic that you feel come game day. And then with about 60 minutes to go, I vividly remember just kind of standing in the tunnel and the security guard's like, "Hey, you're going to want to get out of the way." And I'm just like, I kind of look at the clock, and it's 60 minutes and 30 seconds till tip. And I turn around and I look, and you just see a bunch of very excited, very loyal, very passionate Jayhawk fans getting their chance to see, their first look at this year's team. And I'm like, yeah, I need to get to the locker room ASAP, or I'm going to get trampled by these people. And go back to the locker room and didn't go back to the floor until about 3.5, 4 minutes until tip. You walk out, and at the same time as we're walking out in the opposite corner, out come the cheerleaders and everybody else with the flags, and the team comes running out, and the crowd's going nuts, and like the pageantry of college basketball is alive and well when you're in Allen Fieldhouse. And it didn't matter if they were playing us or if they're playing K-State or if they're playing the Chicago Bulls. It doesn't matter. They're going to come out in droves to support their team, and just what they've been able to build over there, and just the pride that they have in the program, going from staff to admin to to the fans and just everybody, what I mean. It's really something. Like, one of the coolest experiences I had there wasn't even playing. My last year at Emporia State, I was able to get in touch with Coach Quarterbaum, Coach Q, who is like the coolest person of all time. Like, you want to talk about normal people? Like, just has time for everybody, and reach out to him like, hey, can I get some tickets? They're playing BYU that night, and it was a couple days prior. I said, oh yeah, I'll get you in touch. We'll get you hooked up. No worries. And was able to go and sat 2 rows behind the bench and could barely hear what Coach Self was saying just because how loud it was in there and everything like that. And that was the coolest time for me, honestly. But it was cool to be there as a coach and things. But it was cool also as as just a basketball person, just to kind of just be in there, soak it all in, not have to tell people to jump to the basketball or sprint the floor or manage expectations. Like, you just got a chance to be somebody that just enjoys basketball, and that was a really cool scene, a really cool thing to be a part of. So no, it's anytime I've been in Allen Fieldhouse though, it's especially once they feel, oh, it's electric. It really is, and it's something that definitely will never forget.
From your perspective as a associate head coach, what makes Bill Self one of the best coaches in the history of college basketball?
Yeah, well, Coach Self gets great players, and Coach Self is great at motivating those great players. You know what I mean? There's no secret to that. I mean, hadn't been to a practice or anything like that, but I mean, there's a reason why their standard is the standard. There's a reason why they get a certain level of player. But I also think too, like, even as far as the players in which they attract, the development side of things has been so impressive. You know what I mean? They would take guys, an Ochai Agbaji or Christian Brown, that, like, obviously they're great players. There's like, nobody doesn't know that they're great players. But after they spend their time at Kansas and they leave after the time that they're there, they're far and away better than what they were when they arrived. So, I think that there's obviously a conscious effort not only to their day-to-day process, but how good they are putting guys in strength positions and making those players become who they are, and continue to develop. So, I mean, they have the ability to recruit top-notch talent, that they have the ability in which to develop that top-notch talent, and also to bring it all together, which that's a skill in itself, because everybody that Kansas will get has been the best players that they've been. The same thing with us in Emporia State. Every player that we get was the best player someplace else. Same thing at Houston Christian. But their ability in which to take all those guys and bring it all together for the greater good to represent Kansas Jayhawk basketball. There's a reason why they've been so good as they have been, and is a constant as they have been, and the success of college basketball that has been. So without knowing Coach Self personally, that would be what I would attribute that to more so than anything else.
In the MIAA, Northwest Missouri State was very dominant, winning 3 times during your time at Emporia State. You did sweep them during the 21-22 season, which was very impressive. A lot of people at Emporia State, that was one of the great achievements that you guys did that season. What makes Ben McCollum such an elite basketball coach, and how were you able to have that success against Northwest Missouri State that season?
Yeah, for sure. Well, we had great players that year. That was that 21-22 season was really that turning point. A lot of things had to go our way. So, you know, Trey Buchanan, who led the all of NCAA Division II in scoring that year, he was coming off of an opt-out year during the COVID year. Like, he was done playing. And he came out to visit, or was going to come out and visit, couldn't make it. And at this point, I'm just kind of like, all right, yeah, I think he's done. You know what I mean? Like, he isn't, he's done playing. And he's like, no, I'm going to reschedule and things like that. I'll get back to you. And, as a coach, it's just kind of like, all right, at that point in time, there's a lot of other people we can recruit. But within a couple of days, he hit me up and he found something that worked for him and his dad to come on down. And, you know, mom, dad, him, they came, they visited, and he's like, hey, I'll let you know in like 48 hours. Okay, great. Less than 48 hours later, he's in, and we knew we had somebody that would be a capable scorer. And by capable, I mean 15, 16, 17 a night. Like, he had the ability in which to do that. I would be an absolute liar, and as would everybody else in our program would be, to think that he would lead all of Division II in scoring on the front end. Now, once you saw what he did every single day on a daily basis, it became more believable, looking back at those practices, in the preseason and things, and just kind of, he took everything he had, he took everything that he had coming. Like he like, coach gave him something, he took out and ran with it. Like, he earned it all. He earned every single bit of that. And side note on Trey, he's ironically enough playing with Northwest Missouri great Trevor Hudgens over in France right now. So I mean, it's just small world on how that stuff works. I think that's just a real cool story for them to from going from competing against each other to now playing on the same team together, however many miles France is away from here. But it's crazy. It's really crazy to think about. But we also had a kid, Jamari Turner, 18.9 points per game, was third in the conference in scoring. Trey being one, Trevor Hudgens being two, and then Jamari being sandwiched right at the back end of that. And he wasn't going to come back to school. His mother had passed that off season. He already had his degree, and he hit us up in August and it was like, "Hey, I'm going to exercise this COVID year. I'd like to come back." And we're like, "Absolutely. Why wouldn't we?" I mean, Jamari is one of the best people we've ever had in our program, and one of the best players we've ever had in that program as well. And we just had a group of guys that were very hungry. We had an older group of guys too. We had some good athletes in that bunch. Mayun Boom, who had played for us. Brendan Van Dyke, Caden Evans, Peyton Rogers Schmidt. We had a lot of guys that were very versatile within their skill set, both offensively and defensively. And I think we found a game plan that really worked. We switch a lot defensively, and Coach McCollum, he's an elite coach. I think much people talk about how good he is offensively. I think he gets his guys to really, really guard and understand personnel and just play hard and compete and expect to win. So nothing but respect for him. But offensively, with a lot of things they were doing were go screen based and different things conceptually that with what we did defensively, it was a good matchup for us. Not an easy matchup by any means, but something that we could do that maybe other teams couldn't as much because it wasn't their identity. So, we were able to have a little bit of luck and have a little bit of Trey Buchanan and Jamari Turner going nuts on in the game at our place, and then we ran it back another 12 days later because there's COVID still going around and we got a game rescheduled, whatever. We went back to their place, and then it was Brendan Van Dyke and Mayun Boom that missed one shot and combined for 43 points in that game. And Trey and Jamari were just okay, but you know what? Like they were seasoned. They'd been in that situation before where things weren't going their way, and they had to try and inspire others to really play at their peak. And Bearcat Arena is always a hostile environment. You know what I mean? There's you win those many games, people are going to come out and watch, and they had quite the following there. There's no secret to that, but no, that year in the MIAA, we won 20 games. We finished fifth. You know what I mean? We couldn't make an NCAA tournament because of D2 and the regionalization, which that's a whole different podcast for a whole different day. And there's people that are far and away better, more qualified to speak on all that stuff than I am. But nonetheless, that was quite the year in the MIAA. I remember Washburn had a very strong team. Fort Hays State had a very strong team. Obviously, Northwest had a very strong team. Central Oklahoma, I mean, was stacked at that point in time. I mean, every single game, like if you didn't show up, you show up and play well and lose. But no, those Northwest Missouri State teams, like as good as advertised. There was a lot of really, really good players, a lot of really, really good coaches, and they're just tremendously disciplined and accept their roles and exceeded those roles at the highest level. So it definitely made for some great opportunities come game day to be able to play against some of the best in the country at the D2 level for sure.
What are some of your favorite things about coaching at the college level?
You know what? I love being part of the developmental process of people. I enjoy our student athletes being able to figure things out. And it doesn't matter if I'm helping them figure it out or another person on staff's helping them figure it out, or shoot, it's best served if they can figure it out independently. If they can figure it out independently and hopefully teach some others how to do some things, I think that's outstanding. You know what I mean? So I enjoy that part of it. I enjoy the competition. I enjoy the fast-paced environment. I enjoy the fact that I get to be around, our guys, which, it forces to keep me young. You know what I mean? It hasn't helped my hairline. I'm starting to thin in the back a little bit, which I thought would never happen. And it's stressing me out a little bit at times, but, I get to be around some really awesome people on the daily. I love being a part of a team. You know what I mean? We got a great staff, great people, and the same happened in Emporia State. The same happened at Rock Valley, and because of those people, I get to do something that I'm pretty darn passionate about doing. So, I definitely don't take this position lightly. It's definitely something that I'm very proud to be. a college basketball coach, but no, it's been great every step of the way, and I look forward to doing it moving forward. So.
That's awesome. Love hearing that. My final question to you, Coach, is what advice would you give to those who want to get into coaching, whether it's at the high school level, college level, or maybe even the NBA?
For sure. I think networking is very important. And I mean, not just, knowing anybody, but meaningful relationships. I think I do my best. I could always do better at everything, really, but particularly this on, different relationships that I have with different people throughout the business, whether it be, junior college coaches, because we're recruiting their players, or other 4-year coaches, because shoot, we'll be recruiting their players too once they hit the transfer portal nowadays. But no, just for younger coaches, just meet as many people as you can, and be as available as you can. We've had a lot of great student assistants to come through our program. Like they've and the stuff that they do to try and make this thing run is impressive, to say the very least. And I know I can speak for Coach Doty on this. We're very grateful for every single one of them, and what they bring to the table. But being available, learning how to do new things. Being able to do those new things obviously helps them, boost the resume, which then allows them to do better the next job, which then allows hopefully the opportunity for the next job after that. But, between, networking and getting to know people, and being able to help people along the way, I think, college basketball still, there's money involved, and there's different that, like, everything's ever changing, but it's still the people's business. You know what I mean? You got to be good to people. We got to treat people the right way. You got to try and make people's lives easier. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a student assistant, make the assistant's life easier. As an assistant, make the head coach's life easier. Serve the players better. You know what I mean? So, I think anybody that, is kind of aspiring to do that, get a chance to meet as many people as you can, develop as many meaningful relationships as you can, across all levels of basketball. And I think also just never being too proud to learn. We were on a Zoom yesterday with a high school coach, from South Dakota, Sioux Falls, Roosevelt. All right, Coach Mitch. And Coach Mitch was great. You know what I mean? He's somebody that played the Division I level and has been a head coach for a long time. But, like, he's just calling us just to pick our brain on different stuff. And he asked really good questions. Really good questions. And I mean, like, stuff where I had to sit there and, coach was kind of deflecting, like, Lave, you could take this one. I'm sitting there like, man, I was hoping you wouldn't, because that's like, he's going to put me through the ringer on this one. But no, it's never being too proud to learn, because you can pick up stuff from anybody and anything along your way, and how you want to do something, how you don't want to do something. So I'm just saying, just show up every day, be available, make people's lives easier, and be a student of the game. And especially for people who want to be at the college level, if you got access to guys that can play a little bit, that don't help either. But part of that is obviously getting to know the right people and things like that. So no, it's there's no clear cut path to getting here. Some people start Division I, and they never know a level outside of Division I. Some people are like me, where you get to your 13th year of college basketball and you get your first Division I opportunity. Some people never get that opportunity, and they are perfectly happy, whether it being at a high school level or at the D2, D3, and there's great coaches and great players of all levels of college basketball. And it's a great game. There's many ways to do it. There's many people that have a lot of success doing a lot of things a lot of different ways. So I think that's what makes the game so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think about your time at Emporia State. And Emporia State, it's known to being for teachers. It's help and coaching. They offer a minor in coaching. So having those student assistants be able to fulfill their minor in coaching as well, getting that experience, that had to have been a really cool thing as well about your time at Emporia as well.
No, no, for sure. Those guys, like, the cool, like, the education side is great, but the experience side too. Like, there's people that did complete transformations in their personality and how they did stuff, just from the moment they walked through, and just kind of learning the ropes, and maybe being a little bit more timid, because you know it's a fast-paced environment. You know what I mean? Like, I'll speak only for myself on this. Sometimes I'm not the easiest person to work with. You know what I mean? Like, and then there's expectations, there's things. We tell people the truth and how stuff goes, and watching those guys develop through that, and like, it's cool. Like, we had Skylar Stewart that worked for us for 2 years. He called me about 3, 4 weeks ago, and he's graduating this year. I can't believe it. And not because I can't believe he's not graduating. I can't believe he's graduating because how fast the time's gone. And he's asking, for to be on for me to be a reference on his resume. It's like, absolutely, so I think that's the coolest part about it, is just getting people to, watch them figure out, their niche in the game and everything like that, and how they want to go through things, and, whether college basketball is for them or not, trying to help them get to where they need to get to and watching them develop through the process, you know what I mean? Whether it's our players or student assistants or, younger assistants that are just getting started and things like that, it's rewarding to be able to watch others that you get the chance to be around to have some success.
For sure. And Coach, I wish you nothing but the best. I know you guys are going to be really successful here in the next couple years, because I saw it when you guys were at Emporia, how you built that up. I think you're about to do the same at Houston Christian. I mean, when you're at Emporia, you had 16 guys, I believe, are now playing who ended up playing overseas during your time there. And I think at some point you guys will have a guy who ends up playing in the NBA as well. I think you
That'd be
guys are
great. That'd be
heading
great.
in
That'd be
that
awesome to see.
trajectory. Yeah, and I wish you nothing but the best, and I look forward to seeing you guys play in the NCAA tournament at some point in the future.
Man, I speak that in existence from your mouth to the good Lord's ears, baby. So hopefully, I appreciate both of y'all and your time today for having me on and listen to a little bit of story that I've been able to be a part of along the way.